Welcome to the Mystic Fool's Journey podcast. I'm Anna, and this is Ruth.
Howdy.
This is an occult history podcast, and today we're taking a deep dive into Ngangas. Let's dive on in.
Let's do it. I'm so excited. Ngangas are one of my favorite things in the world.
I'm excited to hear about this. I'm coming in mostly blind. I think maybe a year or two ago you gave me a very brief introduction to what they were. So I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, that's okay. We're just gonna have you blind react. This is gonna be a good one. So today we're gonna talk about Ngangas, and if you're not familiar, an Nganga is a tool used in the religion of Palo. And Palo, also known as Las Reglas de Congo, is like this cool mix of African and Catholic beliefs that started in Cuba way back in the late 1800s or 1900s. It's all about blending traditional Congo religion from Central Africa with Catholicism and Spiritism, which makes it syncretic, right, Anna?
It does. That is a lot of syncretism happening.
There's so much syncretism happening.
Yeah, we're going to leave it at that. I feel like if I looked into the history of why Catholicism made its way into Central Africa, I know I'd be displeased.
Yeah, no, it's the slave trade.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, good, another one of these when two worlds collide in a horrific way. But the Ngangas, though, sound cool.
Yeah, and the history of Palo is very, very interesting. So in Palo, the folks who are a part of it are called Paleros if they're guys, and Paleras if they're gals. And it's kind of like this club, where each group is run by a leader called a tata, which is a dad, or a yai, which is a mom. And the Paleras or Paleros are the spirit mediums of the religion.
Okay, interesting.
Yep. And so now they believe in like a big boss god called a Sambi or Sambia, and they think that this god's pretty hands-off with us humans. Instead, they're all about like these spirits of the dead. This is kind of where you get the spiritism aspect of it. And they're all called like the Kalunga. And the heart of Palo is this thing called an Nganga. Or sometimes it's like lesser called a prenda, which is like a special container made of iron, clay, or even a gourd sometimes. And inside there's all sorts of stuff, like sticks and even human remains.
Ooh, okay. that you jumped from sticks to human remains.
Yes, and they call the human remains Nfumbe. Think of like the Nganga as an equivalent to like kind of a Catholic altar sort of thing. And what's also important to know is that a Palera or a Palero does not own an Nganga. They very much view this as like a living, breathing partnership.
Oh, interesting. So like this is like where the spirit or spirits potentially live. So it's like a, yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah. They're working
together. Genie in a bottle sort of thing.
Yes, definitely. And I assume sounds like a more involved genie in a bottle situation.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, you have this living thing. Basically, you've made a home inside your home for a spirit.
Yep.
Yeah, and you need to keep it up.
Yes, exactly. You need to keep it up. And here's where things get interesting. If there's Nfumbe in the Nganga, it means the spirit of a dead person is hanging out in there, helping out the Palero or the Palera who owns it. And they can kind of tell the Nfumbe what to do, like healing or sometimes causing trouble. Depending on what it's meant for, the Nganga might get like baptized if it's for good stuff, or just left as is if it's for like not so nice sort of deeds.
Ooh, interesting.
But the key is here that you have to be keeping your Nganga happy and giving it offerings. And this can be like blood from sacrificed animals, but it could also be like cigars or perfume or even money. Like it's very much a material thing as well. You're kind of at the whims of what your Nganga asked for. And so then they ask it questions to get advice through different types of divination. But the key here is you have to keep your Nganga happy.
Keep it happy. This sounds very similar. Not, it's obviously not exactly the same, but it sounds similar to, what some modern day witches are doing with like their offerings and cauldrons and, burning certain items. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like I said, sometimes it's called a prenda, which is Spanish for treasure or jewel, but there's other names for it too, like the sorcerer or the cauldron. You can definitely compare it to a cauldron.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I can see where the Catholicism is coming in when you made that casual reference to being baptized.
Yeah.
Without knowing all of the details, I'm not gonna lie, it started to sound like something out of like the Constantine movie or the Pope's Exorcist movie, where like the Catholic side of things only really come in if we need to like keep things in check. Whereas like, the holy water and the baptism like keep the spirits in check if they get feisty.
Yeah, exactly. You're on the right track here. So basically, by casually baptizing your Nganga, that kind of whole thing happens because with holy water. And so basically a lot of the things they offer into the Nganga can be categorized as hot or cold. And so if you're putting something hot into your Nganga, like a blood sacrifice or a remain or, you know, a bone or something, or anything with like what you might consider to be like negative energies, that's when you would baptize it with some holy water into your Nganga as well. If you want to do that to your Nganga, you might want to be creating a fully evil Nganga where you don't baptize any of the hot items that go into your Nganga.
It is a little concerning to me that only things that are baptized are considered good in the way that I'm hearing this, which is like, oh, there it is. There's a little bit of the racism happening.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This
100%.
is definitely a journey we are going on.
I love it. Okay, great.
And so one interesting thing to kind of start painting the mental picture, these Ngangas can be made of clay, gourds, or iron pots, and they're usually wrapped up tight in chains. And you might be wondering why, but it's pretty obvious. The chains help contain and control the energies, preventing them from causing harm or chaos.
Ooh, okay. This is involved. Like, this is beyond altar. Like, let me light a tea candle in front of a painting.
Yeah, and it's so involved because each Nganga is unique with its own name and personality. You're basically dealing with another person in a way, and some are even considered male or female Ngangas, and they're kept in a super special place, like maybe a cupboard, or more commonly, an entire room, usually filled with stuff that reminds you of the forest because that's where the spirits like to hang out.
I'm not gonna lie, if I was a spirit, this sounds kind of miserable. Like, this sounds like Harry Potter, where I'm shoved under a cupboard and that's my room. I'd be like, well, I just would rather hang out in the forest. Obviously, clearly I'm not of this religion, so I can't, like, maybe the spirits like this shit. Maybe they can leave whenever they want, but this just sounds like, I don't want to, like, live in someone's closet when I could just hang out in the trees.
A natural line of thinking to have, because oftentimes Ngangas are buried out in the forest as kind of like a change of pace.
Oh, well, that's nice. Take them on a little vacation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so the Nganga isn't just like a container. It's believed to have a spirit living inside of it. And for a lot of folks, they think it's like a material form of a god. And different gods give different powers to the Nganga. Like, one might give it warrior skills or something like that. And depending on which god is in there, they'll put specific stones or symbols inside.
Humans are just doing the same thing in different ways. We're very creative.
It's true.
And the alchemy here is wild.
So inside the Nganga, there's a mix of stuff called fundamentos, which basically adds to its mojo. And one of the main ingredients is sticks, known as palos, but it is different than Palo Santo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they come from different regions. They just share the name Palo. It's very different. And they come from specific types of trees. And depending on the sect of Palo, they pick different trees because they think each one brings its own special powers. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of what we were talking about the other day about, like, amulets, why are they certain ingredients do certain things in some regions, but in other regions they do other things. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is the stuff that was like regional to them. So of course, it's like if you have an abundance of different trees around you, that culture is going to, like, over time develop like what each of those trees or plants mean. But if they've never seen something like a rose quartz crystal because it doesn't develop naturally, then like they may be like, that doesn't do anything, or that's like, or does something completely different because they have no basis of knowledge because it wasn't in their culture when it was forming.
Yeah, I think you've got a pretty interesting hypothesis going where it's like, I think you end up saying towards the ends of these sorts of things, like, is everything just chaos magic?
I really listen. That's all roads lead to chaos magic at this point in my brain. Like I'm waiting for a time when it doesn't.
Right, exactly. And then so they also toss in soil from different places like graveyards, hospitals, prisons, markets, along with water from rivers, wells, and the sea. And get this, they might throw in Amatari stones, like we said, to represent the specific god linked to that Nganga. And Palo Mayobi Amatari stone is also known as a Piedra di Matari, or just more commonly, simply Matari. But it's a sacred object believed to have spiritual significance. It's a simple amulet or a complex amulet. And the exact nature and symbolism of the Matari stone can vary among different lineages and practitioners of Palo Mayobi. However, it is generally considered to be a type of stone or mineral that is associated with the powers of the earth and the spirits. So it's anything from a simple amulet to a complex amulet, and people carve in like different symbolism into it as a way to like imbue their Nganga with those specific powers.
Love it. Listen, all roads lead to chaos magic. It's
Truly.
We're doing it right now. All these humans have done the same thing across different cultures without having contact with one another.
Yes. And so there's all sorts of other stuff like animal parts, feathers, shells, plants, gemstones, coins, you name it. The harder it is to get, the more they think it adds to the Nganga's power. And this is where things get interesting. There's a very clear hierarchy system to Ngangas. And once you up the level, it's unlikely that your Nganga will be chill with you stepping back down a level. For example, you might start by feeding it a rooster, but a rooster only has 2 legs, so you'll have to feed it a 4-legged animal eventually.
This feels like the start to some seriously bad shit. Like, this sounds like things can go horribly wrong if you get too high up on your high horse about what you're putting in there, because, like, the stakes keep getting higher and higher.
Yeah, so you want to hear a crazy story?
Of course I do.
Okay, so how I heard about Ngangas is because of this guy, and we don't really like to talk about true crime on this podcast, but we will for a second. And so there's this guy that was back in the day, his name was like Adolfo Costanzo, and he was basically a cult leader, but he started off as like a Palo priest. He was trained as a child in the ways of Palo Mayobi, and at a very young age was super involved in animal sacrifice and all these sorts of things. And eventually he moved to Miami, I think it was, and he was basically the Palo priest for a lot of the cartel.
Oh, okay. Stepping it up there.
Yeah, and so the cartel, he was paid by the cartel to kind of, like, they'd come and be like, hey, we're doing a drug deal on this date at this time. Can you make sure that that's cool and gonna be good? And so he'd go like to his Nganga and consult his Nganga and tell them, yeah, you're cool, or no, change it to this date. Eventually, he ended up saying, hey, all these drug cartel members are giving me all this information about their drug deals. I'm going to become a drug cartel myself. And like at one point, the cartel was like, hey, we're going to do this drug deal at this time. Can you make sure it happens? And he was like, my Nganga says no, it's not going to be good. But they went ahead with it. And like Adolfo Costanzo ended up murdering all the members of this drug cartel during this like thing.
Whoa, okay.
Yep. And so from there, he ended up starting a cult in Mexico. And their Nganga was like a really good example of like this hierarchy system of what goes into an Nganga. And so theirs started with like chickens, and then it went to goats, and then goats went to snakes, and then zebras, and then zebras went to lion cubs because lions eat zebras and all that sort of thing. Oh my gosh. It eventually ended in murder, and he wanted to put brains into his Nganga.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was waiting till we got to the human. Like, where'd he go once you hit human?
Well, then you go into different types of human, finding better brains for your human.
Oh, no. Oh, God, no. This is awful.
I know. It's very awful.
Nganga's gone wrong.
They ended up getting caught because he told one of his cult members that he was invisible to the police. Oh. So the cult member just like drove past a normal police checkpoint, and because he thought he was invisible to the police, and the police pulled him over and was like, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm in a cult. And that's how they got caught.
Wow. Ooh, the pride, the hubris before the fall. So rough.
Truly. So back to Ngangas.
Yes.
With all this stuff crammed in there, the Nganga can start to spill out and taking over entire rooms sometimes. Pretty nasty, wouldn't you think?
I was going to say, I'm hearing all this. I'm like, the smell alone has got to be rough.
Yeah, and especially because some of the rituals require boiling.
Well, I mean, if you're eventually putting actual, like, animals, we all know vegetation smells bad when it starts to rot, but then you start putting, like, animals in there, whether or not you're cooking it, like, old meat does not go well.
No, it's true. And during rituals, they might bring out other items like dolls to amp up the vibe or something. But one fun thing, Ngangas love watching singing and dancing.
Yeah, like, enjoy a good show, good, like, entertainment, like the rest of us, right?
Yeah, so that's super common to do during sacrifices and rituals. But like we've said, this all creates a funky smell and attracts bugs, making the Nganga a real force to be reckoned with.
I was say, like, you kind of, like, bring it upon yourself. You're like, the more you put in here, the more you're going to attract.
Right. And so inside the Nganga, you might find some, like, human bones chilling out. But some Palo traditions think it's super important to have bones in there, while others think that just having some soil from a grave or a piece of clothing might do the trick. And get this, even if someone's Nganga doesn't actually have any human remains, they might still claim that it does.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to check, so I'll believe that. I'm not going to dig through an Nganga and mess with the vibe, regardless of what's actually in there.
It's just good marketing at this point.
Yeah, it is. It's like, I believe you.
And so the key part of these bones is usually the skull. Anything around, like, the brain or, like, the head of anything is kind of,
interesting,
considered the best part of the hierarchy.
Oh.
And they call that the kiyumba. And they pick the bones carefully, matching the gender of the person they belong to with the gender of the Nganga.
Oh, wow. That's really, okay, interesting. Very specific.
Super specific. And sometimes they even look for bones from criminals or people who were considered crazy. If they can't find actual bones, they might settle for soil from a grave or something.
All right. I mean, I assume that this is an Nganga meant for wild purposes. Like, if the whole vibe is, like, match the person and the traits and aesthetic you want, like, then I guess this is one of those Ngangas where you're like, ooh, we want a criminal mastermind because we're doing criminal things.
Yeah, I think so. I think you want your Nganga to be as powerful as possible. So why would you choose a Joe Schmo Mr. Accountant to go into your Nganga?
That's fair.
I don't know.
I mean, I would, because I need help with money.
You're right, exactly.
My ends are different than other people's ends. Like, my goals are different, so I can see why they wouldn't choose that, but I might need a nice finance bro in there.
Yeah, exactly. I do think that probably would be best for, a money-based Nganga.
Yeah.
And to your point, traditionally, a Palo practitioner would head to a graveyard at night and pick a specific grave and try to chat with the spirit of the person buried there, and usually trying to convince it to serve them. And that's kind of like when they make a deal with the spirit. So there is an element of, like, quote-unquote consent here at play.
Some consent, kind of.
Yeah, and once they've got the spirits okay, they dig up the bones or some soil and take it home to do their rituals. And sometimes they even talk about their spirit having its own personality quirks, like being stubborn or getting jealous.
Oh, well, that's fun. You bring the whole human along with you. You don't get any, like, special version of the spirit. It's oh my gosh. I'm just imagining, like, what if they, like, played tricks? Like, if you had, like, a little quirky guy that you put in there and he's like, aha, I tricked you. Like, I'm just trying to imagine, like,
or,
weird
like,
things.
What if you had, like, a passive-aggressive Nganga?
Oh my god. Think of, like, a Mean Girls based Nganga where, like, I mean, you'll be popular, but
exactly.
You'll still just be, like, second best. Like, weird things like that.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. I wonder if I wish I did know a bit more about, like, personal stories of Ngangas and their personalities. All of the Palo practitioners who have Ngangas, they keep their rituals so secret because they believe that other Palo practitioners can counteract their rituals at the same time with their own Ngangas and, like, defeat their ritual in a way.
This is like football coaches hiding their strategies and plays from other football coaches.
Exactly.
But yikes. Okay, so yeah, we probably don't know much about what people are actually doing in these rituals.
Yeah, no, we really don't. And we don't know much in general about, the actual practices behind this. It's very difficult to find information about it because it is still a very small sect of society that still practices this. And it's all very, very secretive. And so buckle up, because making an nganga is no joke. It's like a big production that can take days to pull off, and each step has to happen at just the right time of the day and month. When a new nganga is being whipped up for a padre or a madre, it's said to be born from the mother nganga that runs the show. The very first nganga in a tradition, which all others come from, is called the tronco, like the trunk of a tree.
Where is this? I have a lot of questions. Like, who is there? Is there just like one nganga hanging out?
Is there like
old?
an nganga lineage written down, genealogy of ngangas written down?
I want to see that. I would love a family tree of ngangas.
Yeah, it's like yoga practitioners, where it's like a big deal who you train with and where you get your certification, because you can track, line it back to like the original yogi.
Oh my gosh. I know that in jiu-jitsu, it's something similar. I don't know if it's like as serious now, but like it used to be kind of like a, hey, where did you get your black belt from? Because that will tell you where you trained and like very likely like what style you learned and kind of your methodology in jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. And so some even hang necklaces or light candles around the nganga for extra vibes. And get this, sometimes to make sure the nganga is doing what they want, practitioners might get a bit tough, even threatening or insulting it, or giving it a little smack with a broom or a whip.
Wait, I thought we were trying to keep the spirits happy, not abuse them. Like, this sounds very much like, well, now I'm spanking my child because it's out of line, and I don't know if a spirit of a person who's older than you and dead would put up with that.
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't, but I guess if other people do, that's kind of their prerogative.
I guess, if they think it works.
And so then when a practitioner kicks the bucket, their nganga might get dismantled if the spirit inside doesn't want to serve anyone else. It might get buried under a tree or tossed into a river, maybe even passed on to a new keeper. We've found ngangas in rivers all across America.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was one found in Massachusetts.
What? Massachusetts?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was like covered in chains.
Wow. Okay, I did not. Wow, they're really secretive about this. I feel like this is something
incredibly secretive.
Yeah, you would hear about. And we're like talking like, oh, this only happens in other countries, but clearly...
No, it happens here.
Okay, yep, my brain is, wow, okay, turned upside down right now. Massachusetts.
Yep, there's still like stuff that goes down in Havana all the time. Is like a big hot spot for it nowadays. But Miami, a lot of places, there's all around. It's still a very prevalent practice. So in Palo, there's a big emphasis on showing respect to your teachers, elders, as well as the departed. According to Ochoa, they're all about being quick on your feet, strong, and making smart moves. Because anything can happen when you're doing a ritual with that nganga, you know. But they also dig the whole idea of shaking things up and taking risks. They're not really into like the whole Christian idea of sin or aiming for some moral code.
Yeah.
For them, it's all about like tapping into spiritual power.
I was going to say, it's like, clearly, I can see which parts of Catholicism did not survive as well as the ones that did.
Yeah, but here's something you might not expect. Palo teaches that women shouldn't mess with an nganga if they're still having their monthly visit from Aunt Flo. They believe it weakens the nganga and could even make the women bleed too much. That's why a lot of women don't get their hands on an nganga until way later than the guys.
That is I'm trying to like reconcile, like in that sentence, I heard women's cycles are so strong, they weaken the nganga, but also the nganga might like attack you and make you and hurt you for being around. Wow, that's just like a lot.
Well, and this just doesn't make much sense to me because it's like the nganga wants blood.
I know. I was like, well, I have a source of that every month. Like,
right.
Hear me out. We could keep this going strong and I don't really have to like hurt anybody else in order to do it.
Yeah, that's the thing. So what kind of nganga would you make, Anna?
Oh, I think, we touched on it. Probably a financial one.
Yes.
Listen, I got some student loan debts we need to figure out. We got some stuff. Financial bros stuff. I'm trying to figure out if there's something else. Like, I'm just not terribly power hungry. I'm just a little guy who wants to like a fun little life. So like I wouldn't go after any crazy spirits or dead people that, you know, had a sordid past. It'd probably be more just like, did you have fun? Let's have fun. Let's do cool things together.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that's probably pretty fun. I think probably the niche I would carve out in Ngangas is like vegetarian Ngangas.
Yeah, I think that could be a good one. Yeah. Vegan, vegetarian Ngangas kind of makes sense. Like, is there an Nganga that is more just like, I'm literally just channeling Mother Earth / Gaia, and it's like, can we just bring about more like harmony on the planet,
right?
And like synergy between humans and plant and animal life? Like, I'm looking for that in Nganga. I'm trying to like balance things out. I'm not trying to like up the power scale for me.
Yeah, like bring peace on Earth with your Nganga.
Yeah, like aside from like, I just want like my debts paid off. I'm not really looking to like lean into anything that's really superficial. Like, hey, I just want to be able to like have some good meals and make rent and see my buds. Like, we're going for a real chill Nganga here.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. There'd probably be chocolate in mine. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely some chocolate. Like, I don't know what kind of spirit I would channel into my Nganga. Probably somebody fun, like, I don't know, Robin Williams.
Oh, Robin Williams. I wouldn't want to trap him. I'd want to share him. I think that's the other thing. It's like, I don't want to chain anybody that I would want to channel into my Nganga. It's like, I don't actually want to like keep you here forever. I just want to like hang out. Like, when can we schedule a monthly visit? Like, it's just like meeting up for funsies. Check the vibes, see what's going on.
So you're saying you would never want to be put into an Nganga?
No, man, definitely not.
I kind of would.
Yeah. I feel like, hear me out, Ruth. Are you trying to start a cult via the Nganga?
Yes. I would like to be head of a cult in an Nganga.
But do you want to be chained in? I feel like that's the thing. Is it like, you want to have like the freedom and stuff, but these people are trying to like keep you locked down. So
right, but I have the power to hurt them if they don't give me what I want. I want song and dances every day.
I want you to dance for me.
I want candles lit constantly. I'd like, cigars and rum in my Nganga each day. And I'd like to have your money in my Nganga, As an Nganga, that's the energy I am going to bring to the table.
Once again, we have a split. I would love to know who would be on my side and who would be on Ruth's side in terms of what kind of Nganga they would be in. Like, we had a starseed split, the Andromeda versus the Pleiadian. Interesting. I see where our factions are going to splinter off.
Right? I know. Well, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. If you're a fan of the podcast, we need you to do this so we can find new fans and so we can continue feeding our personal Ngangas.
Definitely.
Tell your friends, follow us on all socials. Our handles are Sweet Death Inc. and Mystic Fool Tarot on all platforms. See you later.